I thank you very much for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast. So, what if the real measure of success isn't revenue, but whether your kids remember you being there? See, today's guest, George Rivera, challenges the grind culture narrative and shows CEOs how to design a business that funds their life without stealing the moments that matter the most. Let's talk about it right after this.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
So, today's guest. See, he challenges the hustle narrative and replaces it with intentional calendar design and where family moments aren't leftovers, but they're the priority. And those of you who've been listening to me, you know that I prioritize my kids. It did come to a sac a sacrifice to some degree with my business, but I really wanted to coach football. I really wanted to coach my daughter in basketball and go to her lacrosse games. And this gentleman here, he totally understands that idea. So, George, when did you realize that building a successful company meant nothing if your schedule wasn't aligned with your family?
Well, hey, Maurice, thank you for having me on. Excited to be here. Yeah, I kind of came to that realization the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I don't think that we're born with essentially, and a lot of us will start our business, and the goals to make money and be a provider. And what happened in my case is I accidentally built myself in what I call the founder prison, and there was so many things that depended on me. And you earlier you talked about the hustle and grind culture, and there could be a season where that sort of has to happen because you have to like get the business going.
You
But
do.
at
Mm-hmm.
some point you got to realize, what am I doing this for? And once you generate enough revenue to sustain the business, now it's like, how do I get my time back?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I get things off my plate that I shouldn't be doing? And that's like the business side of it, but
Right.
there's the why we're doing it. And so when we have a family, and in my case, dad's like, plugged in the business,
Mm-hmm.
and missing these moments that matter. And there's this tension there. It's like, well, I'm doing it for the family. Well, did they ever really ask for all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
That's one question. And is it really for the family if all you're doing is you're writing a check, but you're
Right.
absent and not being the dad you were meant to be? So it took me essentially being the kid who experienced the dad not being there. That was the first thing. So
Mm-hmm.
just flash back to like the early 90s. This is when dinosaurs still used to roam the earth.
I
And,
know, right?
yeah, and I played in about 40 basketball games in my high school career, and my dad only went to one of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember 13, 14, 15. I'm like, am I just not that important to my dad? I'm a kid. I don't know how to process this.
Right.
Because like I'd score a basket and I'd look to the stands and no dad in the stands. Cue the
Mm-hmm.
sad music and the
Right. Right.
movies. But my teammates would score
Mm-hmm.
and their dads are on the sidelines cheering them on. That's my boy. And I'm just like, I was looking at another dad, like I wish that was my dad.
Right.
And that would have crushed my dad because he was a good man. There's just
Mm-hmm.
like there's like no manual on how to do this. You
Mm-hmm.
sort of have to just figure it out, or life pushes you in a direction where you can prioritize this. And my dad was a medical doctor, successful in his career, successful on paper, but
Mm-hmm.
the family life was a different story. And it wasn't like a hostile situation at home. He was just
Right.
very absent. And so, my dad was a great provider, nice homes, cars, and trips to Europe every summer. But the
Mm-hmm.
moment that I needed my dad, he wasn't there. Some other dad was. And I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what that dad does. I just want him to be my dad. And so fast forward about 20 years, this is now 2015. So about 11 years ago now. And my dad's entering his 40th year of his medical practice, thinking he's got a long run ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's this phrase, God laughs at man's plans.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't exactly in his destiny there.
Right.
And he was diagnosed with cancer early on in 2015 and given a few months to live. And he ended up making it about 10 months. But the words that he told me before he passed away completely changed the trajectory of my life. And it's kind of why we're sitting here right now
Right,
talking.
right.
And he said, "Don't miss Leo's games. I miss too many of yours."
Mm-hmm.
And Leo at the time is my son, who's like 11 months old. He's already starting to like walk and talk and doing a lot of the firsts that a little boy, little baby will do in their life.
Right.
And I'm missing these moments. I'm depending on my wife to send me the videos and pictures. And there's that
Mm-hmm.
little subtle, I don't know that it's a jab, but it's a statement that's like, you missed another moment. Here you go. And it's
Yeah.
just like, I should be there. And so when my dad made that statement, it was beautiful closure for whatever that was as a kid I was
Mm-hmm.
experiencing. It's like my dad really did care. He just didn't know how to do it, but he
Right.
cared. And then the other side was like, oh my gosh, I'm you all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the nice homes, cars, trips to Europe thing, just like you taught me.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I was the boy that didn't like it, and now I'm the dad who's doing it to his boy.
Mm-hmm.
This ends here, but it has to start tomorrow because today I'm working 16 hours,
Mm.
and come tomorrow turns into tomorrow. Many
Right.
tomorrows turns into 3 years, and
Right.
so at this point, my dad's already long gone, and I'm scaling my business, this $20 million a year business, and it's very profitable. It's like I've got this money printer. I push a button, it just spits out money, more money than I can handle, as long as I'm not buying like helicopters or something.
Right.
Like I
Right.
should be good. And no helicopters purchased. And so, but I reached this point in my life that I'm like, I hate my business, and I
Mm.
don't say the word hate unless it's like this visceral
Right.
meaning, like, and so in the summer of 2018, I reached this burnout point where
Mm.
I'm talking to my mentor, and I'm just like, I want out of this thing. I want to sell it, but you can't just snap your fingers and sell a business. It
Mm-hmm.
takes years to
Right.
prepare and then hit the market, evaluation, LOIs that never follow through, like 80% failure rate. So it's like, okay, that's not a tomorrow solution.
Right.
The other tomorrow solution was you can burn the thing down. That's an
Mm.
option.
Yeah.
Probably not the smartest,
No,
the
probably not.
ramifications. Yeah. So my mentor lovingly walked me off the ledge, and he
Mm-hmm.
just said, you got to stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you're good at. Keep
Mm-hmm.
doing the things that bring in revenue for the business. Like I'm good with sales, copywriting, sales funnels, expanding into new marketplaces, strategic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
not, merchant accounts, payroll, vendor stuff,
Mm-hmm.
techie stuff. And the thing is, like, I had the world's worst org chart. It was me and 40 people beneath me. I would delegate down to them, so
Mm-hmm.
I thought, and then it would boomerang back up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just rob from the future. And I'd say it's quicker if I do it myself. And yeah, in that moment it is.
Right.
But I'm training my team that George is the firefighter. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just get it to a point and throw it back to George, and he'll finish it off. And the crazy thing is, I'm paying these people and I'm finishing their job for them and still paying them. It's kind of a crazy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for a number of years, and I wanted to burn the thing down. And when my mentor told me that statement, that was the beginning of what I'm doing now,
Mm-hmm.
which is I created a movement called Buyback Time Formula. But
Right.
at that time, I didn't know, that name didn't exist. I didn't know what a bottleneck was. I didn't know what a framework was. I am just doing the work. And transformation took about 2 years. It could have
Mm-hmm.
happened in 6 months, but entrepreneurs like, I'm the best one at this, even
Right.
though that's not true. But I think and believe I am. And if I let it go, my business will crumble,
Right.
which is
Mm-hmm.
just completely false. But I had to do a little bit step by step, take a leap of faith, buy back some time.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did that, and my business was fine, I was addicted to just doing it, to everything I could to get it all off my plate. And so the
Mm.
transformation, the outcome was I took my business from 20 to just shy of $50 million.
Mm-hmm.
So more money, that's good.
Right.
But the more impressive thing was that I'm now living a semi-retired lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And do emergencies still happen? Yeah, but somebody else handles them, and sometimes I don't even hear about them. They just
Right.
get put out. And so I'm never working more than 30 hours a week. And the
Mm-hmm.
work that I am doing is in my zone of genius that brings in revenue for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the most impressive part of the whole thing is, like my dad said, don't miss Leo's games.
Mm-hmm.
I never missed any of his games. In fact, when he was 8 years old, I taught him how to negotiate real estate. We have Airbnbs around the country, and,
Mm-hmm.
and, and one property in particular, we're looking at this house. And I'm thinking, man, this house is going to be a competitor to another property I own. So let's go look at it. And, we're there looking at it. And the old me would have said, son, here's an iPad. There's a room. Go play. And we'll let you know when the
Mm-hmm.
big people are done talking. And that's
Yeah.
fine.
Right.
That's like the default that most would do. And nobody would like judge me for it, I don't think.
Right.
But the new me, the current me, is like, teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
Son, you're going to deliver the offer to the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, close in 30 days. Here's the price we're going to pay. Leave the furniture, leave the dock. And this is all going to save us like 100 grand because this is a rental. It's an Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
Now go tell the realtor. And he's like, why am I doing this? And I'm, go tell. We'll debrief
Right.
later. I'll teach you why
Right.
this is. And then he's telling the realtor, and the realtor's kind of looking at him with a little smirk, like, why is little kids like saying big numbers and stuff?
Right.
And then he looks at me, doesn't say anything, but he looks at me, and
Mm-hmm.
with his eyes, he's asking me the question, is this the offer?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, young whippersnapper spoke for us. That's the offer.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the house. I mean,
Nice.
obviously the terms have to make sense, but
Right. Right.
he conveyed the terms for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just imagine one day he's going to be with his kids like, hey, my dad took me to do this. We're doing just
Mm-hmm.
like my dad did. And that's like a new family tradition.
Mm.
And fast forward to current day, he's 11 now. He has a podcast. He's
Nice.
interviewed almost 40 people.
Nice.
I tallied up their gross totals that they talk about publicly, and it's like in the billions, and a
Nice.
couple of major connections through his podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of went off on my son there, but that's just evidence of a present dad in the home, of the things that are possible.
Mm.
Like I I changed the trajectory of it because
Mm-hmm.
my son was sort of like on the path of just being another kid who's just a
Right.
zombie to the phone and
Mm-hmm.
disconnected from society. And so when dad's in the home, you can do things like that. So
Right.
long way to get to like the season pass that you'd asked about at the beginning. But yeah, so we have to have a reason why we're doing it, which will give us the motivation to like fix the business side.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, it could be hard to find the motivation. But
It's-
yeah, once you restore that bond at home,
mhm.
then that's when you can make the impact that you were born to make. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'll leave it there and see where you want to go from here because I've been going for a while.
No, and I let you go there because I wanted people to really hear, one, your story, but number two, there's some key points that I want to pull out that sometimes as entrepreneurs, because you touched on it and kind of kept going. There's a part where we're told that in our mind that if we don't do it, no one else will be able to carry out the mission or the vision in our organization. And so we have a stranglehold on that organization. And as you stated, we come into bottlenecks. We're the only solution without really giving other people or having other people around us feel empowered. Because that is the key. Because we need innovation, we need to stay creative. All those type of things. And so, how were you able to? I understand that there was a part of you to say, "Hey, you know what? I heard what my dad said, but there was another level of letting go a little bit, a little bit of letting go of control, and yeah, I just leave it there. How were you able
Yeah.
to really let go of that control in that space? Because a lot of times we don't know how to do that.
Absolutely. And it's a tough thing because, yeah, when my dad told me that first, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I need to be present with my family. And I don't think anybody out there is going to disagree. Hey, dad needs to be back home or mom needs to be present. Like nobody disagrees with that. But the
Hmm.
part that the brain sort of like, the contradiction or the opposing viewpoint that our mind comes up with is like,
Right,
I'm on board, but who's going to do all the things that only I can do as the founder? Like, this is my baby. I set it up. I know how
right.
it works. Nobody's going to care for it like I do. And so, and I see it now as the line that we tell ourselves, but at the time, it's like it's believable and it's
Hmm.
even reinforced because there's experiences that sort of cause us to be like, well, yeah, because I had to put that fire out or that landed on me, and so
Hmm.
we have kind of that history that sort of affirms that, but
Hmm.
that's because our infrastructure isn't properly set up. And
Mm.
like again, speaking for myself, it's like I took my business from just shy of 2 million to 7 million to 20 million, and
Hmm.
and so I had an infrastructure that was good for like that 2 to 7 million, but once I hit 20, it's like I needed to grow and expand, and
Right.
and so if my frameworks and my systems, which were much to be desired at that time, were properly set up for scale, I could have been what I call scaling freedom, but instead
Hmm.
I scaled chaos. And so yeah, it's
Mm.
manageable at that lower level because oh yeah, I can make the call, put out the fire, and nothing's like blown up too much. But at
Right.
that level, you're just it's like almost 24/7. You're on call, you're on edge,
Hmm.
and so the key is in my case anyway, I just had to take a leap of faith, but not like this blind faith where you don't know where you're going. it's
Right.
it's it's like there's a plan and a framework to implement, and as
Mm.
long as you follow the steps and you do it properly, you can have confidence in it and that it's going to work for you. And so that's
Mm,
by, passing down what I call decision rights to
mm.
people that you delegate to. And there's a process to proper delegation
Right.
as well. But I've given people the liberty to make decisions up to a certain point so
Right.
that it reduces the constant pings and the context switching, which is
Hmm.
tough. So like we're working on one thing and then we get a ping about something else, and it's like, oh,
Right.
I gotta stop doing what I'm great at to go put out this fire. And now my brain's like over here. Now we got to try to get back to what I'm good at. And I'm like, maybe now I'm a little bit more stressed out. I'm frustrated. It's later in the day, and it's like finishing off that
Hmm.
is going to happen at a lower level of quality, if it even gets completed. In some
Right.
cases, it's like, oh yeah, it's gone. I forgot what I was doing. And so like an example too, like at my peak I was working almost 80 hours per week, and I was like, I
Mm.
didn't even know there were 8 hours in a week. But
Right. Right.
anyway,
Right.
I was working all that. And when I did what I do in my first step of my program, and it's in my book, it's like do what I call a freedom audit, or it's
Hmm.
basically a time audit. And you have to document everything that you do for a 2 week period,
Hmm.
and you act like there's a camera on you. And you're like, I woke up at this time, I brushed my teeth, I made food, I worked, and this is what I did when I worked. And the reason you want to be so detailed is because if you're judging like, should I wrote down if I brushed my teeth, or
Hmm.
should I write down if I followed up on this email, it's not a big deal, then you're going to omit a lot of things that you
Right.
should probably have in place. So don't be judgmental, just put it down. And then in
Mm.
2 weeks you'll have a full snapshot of the things that you do. Now what do you do with that? You give yourself a dollar per hour value. So in my
Mm.
case, and I call it the 10K per hour filter. But in my case, I'm worth anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 an hour when I'm just like in my zone of genius.
Mm.
And so when I ran my 80 hours against my filter of 1 to 10K per hour, I realized that 40 of those hours, so half of that week, I was working on $50 an hour or less type tasks. And
Mm.
so, not a
Hmm.
mathematician, but
Right.
take 40 hours times
Yeah,
$50,
it's not.
and that's $2,000 for a company that was printing money at a $20 million
Right.
annual rate.
Mhm.
It's like not a big investment. And of course, I
Mm.
get it. People might hear that, well, I'm not at that level, but that could still be related to whatever level you might be.
Mm.
Maybe you got a company doing a few 100,000, but you're doing lots of $10 an hour or less tasks.
Mm.
And so the same concept can apply to anybody who's listening. And so for just a
Mm.
small amount of money, I could buy back half of my freedom, half of my time, which means more sanity, more time to give back to my family,
Right.
and restore the bond that was broken over just many years of promises.
Mm.
And an example of a promise that's broken is like, yeah, I'll be at that game.
Right.
Sorry, I can't make the game because of business fire. Like I want to be there, but I can't because this, and I don't have anybody else to put it out. I'm the
Right.
firefighter. And so the family sort of like starts to plan a life without you, not intentionally, but it's like they can't trust you. They're
Hmm.
like, yeah, you say it, and I believe you mean it, but we know that something's going to come up and take you away. And so when I work with people like in an individual basis, or even
Right.
if you read my book, you'll sort of get the concept. Is like when we book like a Zoom call or a meeting as a business owner, like we won't miss that
Mm.
unless we get hit by a bus.
Right.
So I tell people, please don't cross the street so you don't get hit by a bus, the
Right.
random
Right.
bus. But on the family side, the old me was like, I'll put the game in my calendar, but you might as well call it tentative.
Mm. Hmm.
It's like the second there's a business fire, you delete that thing like it didn't exist. And so now I work with people who are like, when you put it there, you treat that like a business meeting that you won't miss unless you get hit by a bus. And again, I'm like, don't cross streets. So we're making those games. And so it's a mindset shift, but you really have to want to do that. And by staying consistent with things like that, that's how you restore the bond at home that's probably been fractured over years of just
Hmm.
broken promises. And again, not to cast blame. I believe we're all sincere, trying to do the best we can, but we're also believing that lie that I'm the only one, and that's what keeps you trapped. And so I'm here to say you don't have to keep believing that lie.
I think there's some things that you keep giving us a whole lot of information, George, and
Oh,
and I think what happens is that one thing that you said about the $50 an hour thing. Sometimes we don't understand our value in those situations, and because we are so caught up in not allowing people into our circle, right? And understand that hey, we don't have to be the smartest person in the room, because it is our baby or whatever it is. Sometimes we feel inadequate in those moments. I've been in places where people have felt that way. Hey, I have a client that feels as though they have to take charge of everything. overall, and they need to be the smartest person, period. But then when someone else, they feel inadequate, they feel intimidated, or whatever it is. So how do we get over some of those internal feelings? Understanding our real value in that situation. Because if you're saying, hey, you know what, you don't really need to be in that $50 an hour decision making moment, whatever. No, stay where you are. Again, the whole Steve Jobs mentality also, right? Steve Jobs, he's like, listen, y'all go ahead and do that part. I'm in my creative space or whatever it is. So how do we make sure that we stay in a place where we understand our true ROI in that situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, great question. So, yeah, once you kind of have that 2 week of things that you should do, you run it against your dollar per value. So you probably have a list of things that, okay, now I've identified the things I shouldn't do. Now I keep doing what I should be doing, but here's a list. And there's only three things you could do with those things, which it's eliminate. You can eliminate things that don't move the needle. Sometimes we're stuck doing things that, like, you really look at it, you're like, well, I'm just kind of doing this out of habit. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really move the needle for the business. Yeah, let's get rid of it. The other thing is automating anything that repeats. And with
Mm-hmm.
AI, it's easier than ever. It's changing every day. Tomorrow's going to do something that it didn't do yesterday. And it's like revolutionizing the world like every week, it feels like. Um, and then the third thing is delegation. And had
Mm-hmm.
I heard that years ago, I'd be like, yeah, I'm delegating. I got my 40 people, but it boomerangs back up to me. But no, delegation with ownership and showing
Mm-hmm.
them what the outcome looks like. Because the old way of me delegating was delegating tasks, and I wasn't showing them what the outcome looked like. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't giving them liberty to improve on the process, and that's why I had to step in. It wasn't clear. So when you delegate with ownership, you show them what the outcome looks like, and then you create a process that they can follow with confidence. And one of my favorite things to do to sort of explain that portion is,
Mm-hmm.
say, there's screen recorders, like Loom is the favorite one for
Yeah.
now. So you do the task on Loom that you're trying to delegate,
Mm-hmm.
and Loom will create a transcript for you. So I take that transcript, I put it in Chat GPT, or pick your favorite AI,
Right. Yeah.
but Chat's the flavor of the moment, I think. And then you say, like, make me the most beautiful SOP that anybody could understand. And it'll
Mm-hmm.
create this amazing SOP for you. You take that SOP, put it on a Google Doc, and then review it, because, like, Chat's 95% right. It might
Yeah.
miss a step or forget something. So
Right.
you just did the video, make sure it represents exactly the process, and then clean it up. And then take the link of the Loom, put it on the Google Doc,
Mm-hmm.
and now the person I'm assigning it to, I'm like, hey, I got 10, 20, however long it takes, but I got some time right now for you to review this,
Mm-hmm.
and let me know if there's any questions. And so they're reviewing it. Maybe there's a question. Oh, okay, yeah, let me clarify that. Blah blah blah. Back. Okay, clarify. Okay, we're good. And then, yes, I understand from the person. And then I'm like, great, you own this.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it
Mm-hmm.
better, but this should not come back up to me. This is yours. And that's it. And it's like, nothing. You should never come back to me and ask me anything unless we have a strategic change of
Mm-hmm.
direction, a vendor change or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's set in stone. And there is a process to review all of the processes. Say it could be a weekly, monthly. The cadence just depends on the business. It
Right.
could be quarterly. But that's the time to bring up any questions associated with the process that we set up, not
Mm.
these random pings. Because again, that just interrupts while you're working in your zone of genius and you get a ping about something operational. It just, the context switching is what kills productivity.
Mm.
And it bleeds into the family life, that adds,
Right.
stress. Yeah, to talk about how that affects you. It's like the old me was, I'd come home, burned out, frustrated, stressed out, short tempered,
Mm-hmm.
always looking at the phone instead of the people, that are talking to me and giving my full attention.
Right.
And so, having things structured this way sort of like gets you back your mental sanity, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can be present at home for the people that matter most. So yeah, hopefully I covered that portion for you.
No, no, that was good. That was good.
Yeah.
I want y'all to know that, if you really are listening to what George is saying right now, there's a whole lot of nuggets. So I need you to listen to this episode probably about 4 or 5 different times, because especially if you're just starting out, there's a whole lot of things that he mentioned that if you're not on top of it, you can totally miss. And so for those individuals that are listening and they are still not sure of, hey, you know what, Maurice, I've listened to this all these times and I don't know which way to go. Where can they find you and talk to you and understand a little bit more about you and your organization and your book and all those type of things?
Absolutely. The best place to go is buybacktimeformula.com. There you'll see a link to my book. It's free, just cover shipping. It's 128 pages. I put all my knowledge on buying back time in that book. So you can get it. You be like, wow, I can do this. And off to the races you go. If you're like the me of 10 years ago, and I call it cash rich, time poor,
Hmm.
cash rich because you're good on the money side, but the family side, the life side has a lot of leaky buckets inside of it. And you need to fix that part. I would have paid a mini fortune to collapse the time it took from founder prison to semi-retired teaching my son real estate. So like
Hmm.
there's that. So I'm available to walk people through that process if they're like, I love the concept, help me because I don't have time. So
Right.
I'm there for that. And you can find my information there on the page. I also host a couple of in-person events.
Hmm.
One in my home where I feed fellow founders food and we just talk about issues that are affecting us as business owners because it's really not a place to sort of just go and just like share that, hey, there are others just like us in this world that we can
Hmm.
talk to. We're not alone, even though it feels
Right.
like we are.
Yeah.
And then and then I host a roundtable. It's called 18 summersroundtable.com,
Mm.
where people can come virtually, like, hey, I can't make it to where you're at in Austin, but yeah, I'm in Australia, so yeah, you can come to
Hmm.
my virtual event. And so those are a few ways to connect with me. And then I have links to all my socials there too. I post daily on various socials, so you can follow along. And plus, you can contact me. So
Nice.
buybacktimeformula.com is where it all starts.
Nice. Nice. So of course, y'all, as y'all well know, if you listen, is in the show notes. So if you're running, hiking, biking, rowing a boat somewhere, whatever it is, it's right there. But of course, y'all know that the question is coming. Y'all know it's coming. And we want to hear what George has to say about this. Again, we're going to say, hey, use your imagination. So where would you rather choose, George? Which one would you rather choose? A fork in the road or three doors?
Yeah, I'd say a fork in the road. And my reason is because, I'm a man of faith and I believe that fork in the road causes me to maintain my dependency on God and where He's got me headed. Versus, I feel like, opening the doors myself is sort of like me trying to force and choose an outcome. At least that's how I see it.
Hmm.
But I feel like the fork in the road is the opportunity to sort of just maintain my dependency on that. Hey, I don't know where the next 10 steps might be, but I
Hmm.
just need to take that next step and trust that the rest of the steps will be provided for me.
Mm. And again, I think that is very insightful. It sounds short and sweet, but a lot of times we don't understand like there is some power in that as well. Because it's simple, especially if you're a man of faith. You're like, listen, we know that God got it right,
Yeah.
and so a lot of times we don't, because of that faith, we kind of still want to control the situation as well. So that's why I say I think you put out so many different nuggets, and it leads us right to where your real strength and foundation really is.
Yeah, that's true. And he gives us this list of things to be anxious for in Philippians 4, verse 6. And it says, and it's this list of things. It says, be anxious for nothing.
Right.
Ah, so there's that list for you. And I mean, I'm probably violated every day, but just I try to keep that top of mind.
Right, right. But I thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Maurice. Appreciate you too.
No problem, no problem. And of course, y'all, I thank y'all very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. But there's a few nuggets I would like for you to do before we end off. Review your calendar for the next week, and does it reflect what your values really are? And schedule one non-negotiable family moment before adding another business commitment. I thank you very much for listening today, and I'll talk to you just a little bit later.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chisholm on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will it?